Alright, today we're going to mess around with some oil pastels. I have a pencil ready to go. I have a old set of oil pastels. These guys are from a company called Pass, which I hate that name simply because it makes you think of crayons, and that's something you don't want to do when you're working with oil pastels. So, we'll get into it. Here's what we're going to start with. We're not making anything particular today, so let's just draw some squiggly stuff. We'll color it in. It'll be fun. Now, when we go to color this in, we're going to want to grab some colors. More than one. You never want to take just one oil pastel and just go for it, because it's going to look juvenile, it's going to look finished, it's going to look flat. It's not good. Oil pastels are meant to actually kind of emulate oil paint without all the mess of oil paint. So you want to use them kind of like an oil paint. You want to make your own colors. You want to kind of mess around with this stuff. So I would pick colors that are all related to each other, from the same families, like analogous colors, if you know the term. Those are colors that are next to each other on a color wheel. So these are all different kinds of greens. I can mess around by adding some blues into that if I wanted to. Or I could throw in a yellow or two. And that would be a nice array of colors. I would use at least 3 to 4, but you can use a lot. As you can see, you can go kind of crazy with this. So what you want to do too is when you apply them, you don't want to apply them in like a back and forth crayon motion, because again, these aren't crayons. These guys are designed to be like a paint. So use them like a paint. You want to splatter them on there. Use a kind of a wandering line to fill in that space. And then in that, I'm going to go over it again with another layer. If you watch any oil painting tutorials or anything like that, like the famous Bob Ross, for example, he was quite the oil painter, he'll talk about how he builds things up in layers, and he starts with his background, and then he just works forward into the foreground, just putting color on top of color. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to layer these things up. So I've got 4 different greens here, and you can see it's got that very impressionistic kind of quality to it. I'm going to keep going on here, maybe get some blues, and we're going to do the same kind of thing. Oil pastels, once you apply them, are going to be smudgy and smeary, and they're going to help push each other around. As I use this violet on top of this blue, it's going to push around some of the blue that's already there. As I put some green on top of that, it's going to push some of that stuff around and mix them together as well. And that's what you want to do. You want to create your own thing here. You want to create your own custom colors, your own custom versions of things. Let's grab a lighter violet here. Really push this color. So this is going to look very similar to the values, or at least they do in real life. So what I want to do to make sure I can see an edge between these is I want one of them to get a little lighter and one of them to get a little darker. So I might grab some white. Now my white is looking kind of messy, and that's because of the way that we work with our oil pastels. We're going to rub them on top of each other, and so they're going to pick up some of the stuff that's on there. So I want to clean that off. I want to grab a little paper towel and just take off that top layer that's gotten a little funky, and then give myself more of a pure color, because I don't want to, if I have a different kind of color in here, like a complementary color, if you know the term. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. When you mix those together, you're going to get like a real muddy brown kind of color, and that can kind of kill the colors you're working with. So in order to prevent that from happening, you want to avoid mixing together opposite colors. Opposite colors would be like a yellow and a violet. Those are complementary. A blue and an orange. Those would be complementary colors. And any of your reds and greens, those are going to be complements too. And so if you put those down and you mix them together, you can see they create almost like a black puke kind of color, which most people don't like. But if you know how to use that, you can kind of mess with it to create your darker areas. So if I want this side to get a little bit darker, I might put a couple dabs of red there, take one of my darker greens and just kind of push that around, and you can see how deep and dark that's going to get real quick. Just a couple of dabs. And if you go crazy with it, it's going to get ugly, but if you use it sparingly, you can create some neat little effects here. So I've got this one getting lighter, this one getting darker, and if I don't like the way that they're blending out, I can always work on top of them a little bit. If you use too many colors, you're going to end up with mud, because eventually you're going to mix these two complements together if you get a lot of these different things together. It's just a matter of getting all three primaries somehow in there at the same time. It'll turn to mud, so you have to be careful of that. Now, the other thing you can do with this stuff is you can blend them out with your fingers, but most new students go crazy with that. If you over blend this with your fingers, you can destroy this nice texture, this nice color that you have going on here that you can only get really with these oil pastels or like an impressionistic style oil painting. If you take that and you really rub it in there, you can see it just kills the color. It also pushes everything away, and you end up with this thing that looks like, you know, oops, I dropped some water on there and I wiped all my paint away. Doesn't look good. So you don't want to do that. You want to keep those layers. And if that does happen, you can fix it, just like paint. It's a nice part about paint and oil pastels is that you can get in there and you can mess with that again. You can always work on top of it again and bring it back. So if you're just starting out with oil pastels and you haven't really used them before, this is what I suggest you do, is grab a piece of paper, grab some oil pastels and a pencil, and just give yourself a whole bunch of just shapes, nothing particular, nothing crazy. There's a little green in there, so I'm gonna go green. And if you play with it for a while, you kind of get a feel for it. It's all about messing around with your color and creating layers. And just be, you know, do it for fun. Do it for you. You don't have to show this to anybody. This is for you to learn and mess around with and kind of get some feeling with. I do, when I taught my second grade classes, I do a project that looks like this. We used to call it automatic drawings. I'd have them close their eyes and just draw with a pencil, and then we'd color in all the little bits afterwards. And they loved it, because it didn't have to look like anything. And that's what this is about. This is just about finding something meditative to do. Your art is for you, so make it for you. Don't make it for other people. Don't make it so that you can impress somebody with it. Do what makes you happy. Do what you want with it. So that's oil pastels. I hope you have fun making some drawings of your own, get a little messy, and good luck.
If you like this video, please hit the like button below. You can also subscribe to SterbART to be notified of the latest video uploads and to help support the channel. Keep learning, creating, and inspiring.